Come on, 2, 3.
Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, March 8th, 2022. And our top story today, can speech recognition technology teach children how to read? Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Daniel Klein is the managing editor of The Street. Dan, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Oh, nice to see you, Jeff. It's been a lot of podcasts, but we haven't actually seen each other all that often.
Well, we haven't really changed too much. You still got the hair, I don't. But we appreciate having you on. We love your insight. Dan, let's talk a little bit about kids going back to school in some ways. But speech recognition is a big part, I think, in today's environment, learning to read. But speech recognition technology has really advanced over the last 15 to 20 years.
Yeah. So remember the days, the old Apple Newton, where you were supposed to recognize your speech and it never got even close. I had one, and then later had to buy another one for inclusion in my book, Worst Ideas Ever. Those days, speech recognition was a joke. Now, I think you're driving, you can dictate a text, and occasionally something funny happens. But the reality is, this works pretty well. And for kids learning to read, this can be a really valuable tool because, Jeff, I don't know, you haven't had a kid in a school in a while, but my son's average class, he's a senior in high school, has 20 to 30 people in it. And that's certainly true of elementary schools. So it's not like teachers have a lot of one-on-one time, but most schools now have computers available, if not for every kid, which during the pandemic, schools did greatly expand the amount of computers they had. There's certainly many available in a pool or sort of the old AV cart for kids to be able to use. So a teacher can assign a kid a program, and that software can help them with reading and using speech recognition. So this is leaps and bounds above, say, playing Oregon Trail, which is what I did on an Apple II when we first got a computer in school.
Yeah, that I would say that is generations and a long time ago. Dan, there are 100 million children that could really take a step back in terms of their education because of COVID. This technology allows for independent learning, as you're suggesting. Is it based on maybe what we see from Siri, Amazon, and some of the other platforms where they're using artificial intelligence? There's a database that gets pinged in microseconds to recognize what the child is saying, takes into account your dialect or your accent if you're from Boston like you are originally, from Baltimore like I am, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it works. And, I would say that reading has been an issue, and it's not a pandemic problem. I understand we had sort of a lost year in the classroom where, look, my son was given work, but it certainly wasn't the level of school last year that it was in previous years. And we live in Florida, so the school standards are not as high as perhaps they are when we lived in the Northeast. But what's happening here is there's a couple of things going on. You have reading sort of under assault in general. In the digital age, like my son doesn't read a book. Now, does he read things online? Sure. But your level of comprehension for reading like a couple of paragraphs as like an intro to a YouTube video, that's a lot different than reading a book. So technology here could really bridge the gap. It could also do it in a way that like ties in with what kids are actually reading and what they're following. Because, your assignment might not be, Huck Finn or Wuthering Heights or whatever it might be that you're reading in school these days. I'm particularly out of touch with that. I think I read Wuthering Heights. I don't think that was actually a school assignment. But you're probably not reading Hemingway anymore if you're kids, and dear God, don't. Maybe pick up a little Norman Mailer or something. But this can help, and it can work on whatever the material might be. Tom Wolfe, another great one you should be reading that they don't
stuff.
assign.
Yep,
Elmore Leonard, lots of great writers out there. But that being said, if kids aren't reading that, if they're reading, online magazine articles, then reading comprehension can work with that, can help them with those skills. And I think as a society, we need to lean on these tools and figure out, how to make them work and how to bring kids along. Look, Jeff, we're raising a generation of kids that can't sign their own name. And I have terrible handwriting, but I technically know how it works. My son has never been taught a cursive letter, and he's had to sign checks, and we're not even sure what that should look like. So reading is something that has been somewhat lost in the classroom, and maybe technology can rescue us. Certainly the technology is good enough, and that's really encouraging.
Yeah, well, maybe he just puts an X like my grandfather. I used to say to my grandfather, Granddad, can I have some money? And he would pretend to sign an X like an IOU. Last question, Dan. It's great to have independence. It's great to have this technology, but I would imagine it still takes the guidance of a teacher, still takes the guidance of the parents. We shouldn't, not expect that you're going to be involved in some way in your child's reading education. I mean, reading a book to a child at night, or still going in the classroom.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely really important as a parent to be involved. I read to my son everything from like I Spy books, which obviously don't have words in them, to children's books, to we tried Harry Potter. He didn't like it, so we only got through a few books. But I read to him as long as you possibly could, hoping it would engage a love of reading. The reality is it really didn't. My wife and I are both big readers, and my son isn't. But you have to take an active role in education. And look, my son was struggling with algebra, and I can sort of inherently do algebra, but I don't know how to show you how it works. So we had to get tutors. And I understand that tutors are out of the reach of a lot of people, but there's lots of free help out there. There's sometimes just getting extra help from the teacher, which a parent has to initiate. As a parent, you have to take an active role in your kid's education, but it may not look like your education. That's been the challenge for me. Like, I'd love to assign my son, like, read a book every week, but that's simply not going to happen. On the other hand, he does read pretty well because, he plays Magic the Gathering, which is a reading-based card game, that has sort of brought those skills along. So we really looked at where the overall skill level is, not is he behaving the way we wish he would behave. So, if your kid is really good at reading, but they're not reading books, that's okay. You really need to look at comprehension. Do they understand what's there? And don't expect the teachers to do it. It's really hard to be a teacher, and that's absolutely been magnified by what's going on right now with the pandemic. This has been a really tough couple of years for people in the classroom dealing with mask mandates and COVID. And I'm not getting into any of the politics. I just mean there's a lot of added burden if you're in a classroom, even just teaching with a mask on or teaching to remote and in person. So as a parent, you have to get involved.
Yep, and teachers are a rare breed these days for all the reasons you mentioned. Dan, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, talking to your child about online privacy. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM.
But if you're tired of the same.
Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score, a credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking this morning to Daniel Klein of The Street. Dan, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Jeff, very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you and appreciate the analysis on learning. Dan, and learning now involves a lot of online, whether it's using Zoom like we're using right now or applications, a lot of technology. Dan, how important is it for you to talk to your child about online privacy, how to maintain it, what's important, regardless of their age?
Yeah, it's really important. And if your kids are young, you should be handling it. You should be controlling their access, limiting what they can do online, limiting what they can share, who they can share it with. Look, I have friends whose young kids are friends with me on Facebook Messenger in groups with their parents, and they send pictures from school or whatever it is. And I'm sure there's lots of people with friend groups and family groups like that. But as kids get older, it's important to monitor what they're doing. My son, who's 18, so I like legally don't have all that much control over him, but he has an Instagram. And on Instagram, my mom follows him. I'm not particularly on Instagram. And every now and then she'll send me a question, but he posts a lot of, I'll call them fashion photos. He's really into clothes. So he'll post like the new things he's purchased, and he works. So he's certainly paying for those things himself. But I've talked to him that privacy isn't just about someone stealing your social security number. It's about your next job. It's about how people perceive you in the world. And I said, like, look, you're going to be applying for jobs, when you graduate in the summer. And I don't know that the HR department at Starbucks or Target or some of the places he might work are checking out your social media presence, but they might be. And I'm not entirely sure showing how many polo shirts you have or like the cool belt you bought is the best foot you can put forward. And I think that's really important. Like, I have a Twitter presence, or at least I did have a pretty strong Twitter presence before I took I'll say a public-facing job where I don't always speak for myself. As the managing editor of a publication, sometimes my actions would reflect my publication. So there's a lot of things I might have shared on Twitter 6 months ago when I was just me that I won't share on Twitter now because it might be taken as, well, the street says. So I think we all have to be really careful about privacy on two levels. There's the absolute serious level that there's a million scams out there trying to get your information, and we can talk about that later. But there's also this is what I'm putting out there. And so, like, think about it. I was at a bat mitzvah this weekend, posting pictures of us all having fun in our suits and our nice dresses at the bat mitzvah. Fabulous. Posting pictures of the couple of times we, did tequila shots, maybe not a great look, though admittedly the all ages vibe of it, all legal ages, of course, probably from 21 to like in their 80s, might have been a good visual, but I'm not sure I need potential employers or current employers seeing that. So I think it's really important to think about what you're choosing to put out in the world.
Yeah. What's the best way to have a conversation with your child? I'm not a parent. You are, especially for younger kids who maybe, when we were kids, our parents told us don't talk to strangers, right? And there was a code word a lot of times if a stranger was going to pick you up from school, they used a code word, and only you and your parents knew the code word. Those were, I think, a lot of easier conversations. Strangers bad. How do you have these types of conversations with children of all ages, especially the younger ones?
So I think you have to have it fairly constantly. I also think as a parent, you paid for the computer, you paid for the internet, you should be monitoring it. My son, when he first got a phone at, whatever it was, 10 or 11, 12, I would check his phone. I would periodically just grab his phone and see what he's doing. Now he's older. He's probably smart enough to erase text messages I shouldn't see. He certainly wasn't when he was younger. But as a parent, look, I don't think monitoring software is all that useful. I think it often creates roadblocks that are, the joke in The Simpsons where Marge couldn't look up her mammogram appointment, but you could easily get through to all sorts of sites that are, more nefarious. I think those problems still exist. So as a parent, you really need to be talking about know where you're going, because, Jeff, on the internet, you can do legitimate research and click on something and it takes you to, a phishing site, someplace looking to get your information. But the thing you really have to talk with your kids is never give anything out. I saw one today, those questions on Facebook nostalgically, like, what was the first car you drove? Well, they're trying to get a password out of you. Like that's what they're doing. So you really need to talk about all these different scams. For years, my mother would call me like once or twice a week with like, wait, I got an email from so-and-so and it's asking me for this information. And I would say the same thing. Do you have an account with so-and-so? Yes. Go to their website, log into your account. And if they need something from you, it's going to be there as well. Or if it's your bank, pick up the phone and call your bank and see if it's them. But as a parent, you have to start teaching kids, like, where did that email come from? If it's from Chase Bank, it'll be from a Chase Bank email address. It won't be from some long, and it won't be chase-bank. Whatever. And you really need to look into that, but you have to be incredibly careful about sending your personal information. Jeff, I'm assuming you sent me your social security number. I've got this incredible deal with a Nigerian prince. Be unbelievably careful, because all of the scams are not that obvious. We've heard the phone calls of like, you get a phone call and, your mom's in jail and you have to, give your credit card over or whatever it is. Mom's probably not in jail. The IRS doesn't want payment in iTunes gift cards. Be very, very skeptical, but recognize that a lot of these scams are very sophisticated. And, look, giving over your PIN or your bank account number creates a lot of problems. And I'm speaking as someone who got identity frauded, and as someone who's in the midst of getting a mortgage, being identity frauded, which was no fault of my own. I'm sure someone stole mail or who knows what, actually causes a lot of problems when you're trying to get a mortgage. So you want to do as many things as you possibly can to talk about safety with your kids. And I don't think it's that different than, the old stranger danger days. I just think it's, maybe a little more nefarious, because if you get kidnapped by a guy in a van, it's pretty obvious what happened. If someone gets your bank account info and siphons $2 a day, which is a pretty common way to do it, you might not notice for quite a long time. So it's very important to be vigilant about your accounts, look at everything, question any charges, and it can be annoying. 98% of the time you question something, it's just something you bought, but the name isn't, what you thought it was. But you have to talk about these things with your kids.
Yeah, well, I think we found a job for McGruff, the crime dog. I think he's been hanging out looking for something to do. I think online privacy is something he can certainly tackle. Dan, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Happy to help take a bite out of crime.
Har, McGruff. That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, and all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to see our latest content or search our archives? Well, check out our streaming partners, Amazon, Roku, Samsung, and over 100 more. And of course, our website, www.broadcastretirementnetwork.com. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take and drink of. But if you're tired,
Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts. but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a tax doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.